So we're talking about Frank Zappa, one of the greatest composers,
musicians,
rock stars,
writers,
guitarists,
filmmakers,
producers,
all around dad
of the 20th century, specifically in music and, artistic endeavors. He was born in Baltimore, and his dad was a research chemist.
Yes, for the Navy.
Yes, for the good old US of A.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to be working on facilities that had like mustard gas and shit, like literally like chemical weapons.
All the safe stuff.
All the safe stuff that a young child should definitely be around.
Yeah.
And he used to literally bring home like as toys like gas masks and like tubs of mercury.
What dad wouldn't?
For his young son to play with. Which maybe not always the healthiest thing to be exposed to as a young child.
No.
But, it is what it is, and that's just kind of how it went down.
You baby boomers.
Oh, you boomers, and you're playing with mercury all the time. But, so even just right away, just from that start, I feel like that's a kind of an interesting place to grow up. They moved around for a little bit and eventually ended up in California.
Uh-huh.
In a town called Lancaster.
Yeah.
Which I had never heard of before.
No, I thought it was Lancaster, PA. I thought that was the only Lancaster. You tell us, Pennsylvania, which one is better?
Yeah, we're going to make a poll. Vote Lancaster, California or Lancaster, California, I was about to say. Pennsylvania. But whatever. So Frank ended up in Lancaster, California.
Yeah, about age 10.
Yes. And by all accounts, there's not a lot going on in this town.
No, I've heard it's pretty boring.
Heard it's pretty boring. And this is something that we've talked about on the podcast before. I think in the Tom Petty episode, we were saying if you're from a town, and especially before the internet, where there's not a lot going on, there's only so much that you can really get into. Yeah,
it's pretty much like drinking, drugs, music. And, there's definitely other things you can get into, working with your hands a lot. I'm
Sports.
sure those are towns, for that. But yeah, Frank decided that he was going to get into radiology.
Frank became a meteorologist to fill the gaping void in his life. And no. So they're in this Lancaster, which basically is in the desert. Yeah. So there's like nothing going on. So Frank basically ends up filling his time with music. Yeah. And from a young age, he was just listening to all kinds of different music. He wasn't getting formal training. He was really learning all of this shit himself. Yeah. And he has so many great quotes, but one of my favorite quotes from him, he was like, if you want to get laid, go to college. If you want to learn, go to the library. And he was going to the library. Yeah. So he was learning all different kinds of music. He was listening to R&B, he was listening to blues, but he was also listening to, composers. Stravinsky, this guy, Edgar Varese. Yes. Yeah. Who he did I haven't heard any Varese yet. I'm definitely want to after this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's he's like the sound machine before there was Miami Sound Machine.
Okay. So the way that I understood it, he's just doing very avant-garde, dissonant things, and just really pushing the boundaries of music. Yeah. So Frank, from an early age, was like, "Oh yes, I like this."
That spoke to him, which is cool.
But yeah, so he's in California. He said he used to literally bring his guitar to school.
He did, and he said that the rappers of today, he's like, how they dress in hoods and wear shades and stuff like that. He was he was going to high school like that with his mustache and small beard as well.
Yeah, with his little wispy at the time mustache.
I don't know if I were in high school if I would want to hang out with that kid or just talk about that kid. I'm trying to decide, and I tried to decide when he was telling the story, because Frank is kind of tall and handsome, so I probably would want to talk to that kid and be like, who are you? What do you do? Why do you dress like this?
You would definitely be curious.
I would definitely be curious, but if he seemed kind of like he wanted to chop people's heads off when he was walking down the hallways, then I'd be like, that guy's crazy.
Yeah. I feel like his vibe is more just, I'm trying to do my own thing. I don't want to deal with all you stupid motherfuckers. Yeah. Because this guy, we'll talk about it more. This guy was just so smart. Yeah. You could see when you look at interviews that people did with Frank, it's he was clearly always the smartest person in the room. Yeah. But it didn't seem like he needed everybody to know that necessarily.
No, only when you messed with him, when he had to pause the interview and let you know you were a jerk.
He said he has so many just great quotes. He was like, a lot of people think that hydrogen is the building block of the universe because there's so much hydrogen. Me personally, I think the building block of the universe is stupidity. Yeah. Because there's so much more of it going around. Like, damn, Frank, how do you really feel? So yeah, again, like we said, he was always, he always had an analytical mind. Yeah. So he was always kind of like seeing society and seeing its problems and really just seeing right through the bullshit all the time.
All the time.
And he really used his music as a way to kind of shine light on that thing, that kind of thing. So he ended up kind of getting a group together. He joined a band. Yeah. That I don't remember what the name of the band is. Sorry. But
tell us in the comments.
He joined a band that already existed. He basically ended up completely taking the band over. Yeah. Because it's like, how are you gonna, like, who's gonna compete with him musically? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I don't remember what this band was called, but Frank comes in and now it becomes The Mothers, which was short for The Motherfuckers. Yes. Because if there was a really fire musician on the town, it'd be like, ooh, look at this motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he said that was presumptuous of them too, because he felt at the time that they weren't that good to be calling themselves motherfuckers.
Hey, you gotta fake it till you make it.
He definitely came out of that type of school. And he kind of started out as a drummer, a la Stevie Wonder. You know, I guess all the geniuses do that. I'm gonna get a drum kit.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm not a genius. Never mind.
Everyone's got to get a drum kit or else what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? So I might be getting my, the timeline mixed up a little bit, but I know at this point, he was like also like going on TV, like playing bicycles as an instrument, which is just great. Go look up that footage on YouTube if you get a chance. So they were in LA at Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention now. Mm-hmm. And they're making this music. Well, he's making this music and composing this music. That's just insane. Yeah. I mean, it's just combining all these different styles of music and making it into a way that people never really heard before. Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot of intelligence in it. And again, like we were saying, he's so after Studio Z, Frank Zappa and the Mothers becomes a thing. They get signed, and it's funny because they got signed based on their song Trouble Every Day, which we did a reaction video to. Yeah. And the guy that signed him was like, oh, this is great. They're like a white blues band. Yeah. So they signed him based on that, thinking they were going to be like a white R&B band.
Little did they know.
Little did they know there were a lot more than that. Yeah. So they go in the studio. Who was it? Tom Wilson was the producer. So they go in the studio and they start recording the music that they're really making. Yeah. Which becomes an album called Freak Out. And this is some crazy shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who are the Brain Police and all this shit, again, just completely like destroying American culture. Yeah. He was a satirist as well as a musician.
Exactly. Yeah. And also kind of coined as the godfather of comedy rock. I'm into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the producers were like, oh, wow, this is what I signed? Oh, fuck. Okay. So it probably was a little scary. And it's also worth mentioning, it's crazy now because you hear that and it's like, it's called Freak Out and the music is so trippy, but Zappa never did drugs. Right. All he did coffee and cigarettes.
That's it. I mean, the regulated drugs he did.
Yeah. But only the healthiest.
Not the illegal ones.
Yeah. So it's just crazy because, this is at the time, this was, the 60s and the whole hippie culture was happening. And he was basically satirizing that into this album Freak Out, which is so trippy, but it has nothing to do with drugs. It's just, this is just his brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that drug people would listen to. Definitely.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. So they ended up putting that album out, and it didn't do very well in America. Right. But it ended up doing pretty well in other places.
Yeah, Europe. Shout out to you.
And, it's funny because I was thinking about that. I was just like, why would that be? That, I mean, he's an American. He's talking about America. Like, why is it? And then I'm like, well, yeah, he's making fun of America. So if you're part of America and you're part of this society, you're going to be fucking annoyed by this. Yeah. You're not going to like this. Yeah. Whereas the people over in Europe, they're like, oh, you silly Americans. Well, you're doing a great job, Frank.
Yeah. The hippies were like, you're supposed to hate the government, not us.
Yeah. He's like, we're the good guys, okay? Anyone that disagrees with us is wrong. But, so yeah, Frank puts that album out, and they're in LA at the time, and he was saying that LA was pretty conformist at the time, so it didn't really go anywhere, and they were kind of running out of places to play in LA. So Frank is like, we need to go somewhere where freaks are not only more noticeable and accepted, but a lot more frequent.
Yeah.
So where did they go?
They went to London. No.
They decided to go to New York City.
Of course. Which there was no real scene happening yet, though, which is hard to believe in a way. As somebody who kind of grew up in New York and is used to seeing a fair share of freaks all the time. It's hard to believe that there was no real scene in New York at the time.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, too. I guess there was obviously... we're just going to use the term freaks moving forward, but we use that as like a quote, you know what I mean? Because everybody's fucking weird. It's just what kind of weird are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, I'm sure there were freaks in New York, but just I don't know if they were all together.
Exhibitionally weird.
Yeah.
Like, right? Yeah.
And even like, again, we've said this before, New York is so big, there could be a few freaks in Brooklyn and a few freaks in Manhattan and some in Queens, but they might not even necessarily know each other.
Right. That's true.
But Frank went to New York City, specifically, of course, Greenwich Village. Mm-hmm. They had a what's it called, residency?
Yeah.
In the Garrick Theater, which was on Bleecker Street.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. So shout out to the Village. Quick side note: anyone here, if you ever find yourself in New York City, make sure you go to the Music Inn on West 4th Street. It's right by where the Garrick Theater was, and it's just a great place. Lots of great instruments and just a cool vibe and great staff. So check it out. You're welcome, Jeff. But yeah, so they gained a residency there, and they did a lot better in New York.
Yeah.
Because again, people were more used to people kind of pushing the envelope in New York.
Yeah, he always said the vibes in New York were really great. Like, because we're just a bustling place over here. But, no scene, but more accepted here.
Right. So the scene kind of ended up galvanizing around them a little bit, right? Because they were there for 6 months. They were playing shows all the time, and every single show was different.
Yeah.
There was a lovely lady that used to go to these shows by the name of Ruth Underwood, and I've seen some interviews with her where she was just saying, like you never knew what was going to happen on these shows. It was so exciting. Like there could be one show where it's just all music. There could be one show they're just talking about like fixing their cars and they're like throwing ice on the stage, and then the next show they could just be doing like a droning like 2-hour song, and then right in the middle they'll just play another song, and you just never knew it was going to happen,
which is really, really cool and crazy at the same time. And I just want to say, if one of you comes to 3 of our shows in a row, I will make you a band member.
You'll get a sticker too. So they were there for a while, just like really making a name for themselves and kind of, I guess, earning the respect of the scene and like all that stuff. And again, nobody had ever seen this before, so they were just like, wow, this is insane. And Ruth was she was a student at Juilliard at the time.
Yeah.
And her seeing Frank was just kind of like, wow, this Juilliard shit is lame, basically. She was like, this is exciting. Like, this is music. This is art.
Which is so cool. She probably just had her eyes opened after that. And she was like, she totally got him, like, right away.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. It's just such a cool thing. I'm sure it must have been such a crazy thing to be at this show. She was even saying sometimes there was more people on stage than in the audience.
Yeah.
So it was like a really small crowd. Like Frank got to like know all the regulars because there would be certain people that were coming to all the shows. They would see him every day for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then eventually their residency ended and they went back to California. And Ruth said like she felt like the heart of the scene was just taken out of New York. So that's kind of cool that you could just go somewhere for 6 months and be like, we run this shit.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of vibe kind of happened even into the 90s here in New York, too. If you were part of a certain scene, if you went to the same place over and over again, you became, like, literally part of it. Like Ruth is saying, like, you can get to know the person on stage because the venues are not that big. The backstage area is not that big. If you have, like, a hookup to just, like, hang out or get a free ticket or be there, then you could just become part of that crowd. And it's a small time before somebody's like, hey, you want to do a show? It kind of happened to us too, hanging out, talking. Hey, you guys want to do a show? Just goes like that. So that's cool.
Absolutely. So they finished their residency. They went back to LA and they kept making more albums as Frank Zappa and the Mothers. And again, America, and this is going to be, kind of a recurring theme, America, not so much of a Zappa fan.
No.
In general. Obviously, there's some people that, like, are Zappa freaks in America. The people that love Zappa really love Zappa.
Yeah.
But as far as, like, the broader American culture, he was never accepted by that because he's tearing them up. He's trolling them the whole time. Again, like, if you're the people that are being made fun of, you're not going to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like even after a while, he was just like the people that like him are an isolated crowd. Even in his later years, he was saying that, like, you know, and it's kind of true in a way.
Yeah,
but in a good way. Okay, we got the best kept secret.
Yeah, don't get too big on us, okay? But yeah, and that'll be something that kind of recurs as we go through. But so they put out like 5 albums, I think,
in 7 years.
5 albums in 7 years as Frank Zappa and the Mothers.
Right. Before
Frank was kind of like, I feel like I've gone as far as I can with this.
Yeah.
Because Frank always just had a crazy mind for music, and just like he produced, and his work ethic was just crazy. I mean, just 12 hours a day, every single day, just music. And really, at some point, it became like, who can I get that's able to make this music that I'm hearing and writing?
Yeah, and that's kind of like a throwback to his dad. If you're dealing with somebody that's dealing with like chemistry and math and stuff like that, there's so many permutations, right? And that's the same thing for music. It pretty much is math, you know, with feeling. And like there's so many permutations, hopefully. Yeah, they tried to say that Frank's music lacked emotional depth. It's like, what emotion? No, he didn't make me want to cry. Like, you know, so that's just a throwback. Like, how many formulas of this can I make? And I think that's just what's set in his spirit. And he was just like, hey guys, let's do other things and maybe come back to each other after a while.